What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? Are we live yet? Are we live and direct? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, hopefully you in the chat. Got a question for you. Don't know if it's getting started. What's going on? This is your brother Shabazz. How y'all doing? Getting it started tonight. The breakout. The breakout report. The blackout report, I should say. Is it getting too much for you? We're going to get it started. I'm going to see if the algorithm is going to do what they say it do and send off notifications before we get started. Okay, so I definitely got the sound. Sound is here. You think redistricting is the biggest threat to black political power? That's the question that's one of the questions we're going to address tonight as I try to get myself situated. Do you think redistricting is the biggest threat to black political power, at least over here in the United States of America? What's going on, everybody? What's up? What's going on? This your brother Shabazz getting it started for the proper perspective. I forgot my official formal greeting, but peace to all the positive people in the universe. Hotep to all the pro-black Pan-African world and anybody else who looks beyond the smoke and mirrors. This your brother Shabazz. Sometimes your Professor Shabazz. You are welcome now to the At the Proper Perspective experience, and tonight we got some puzzle pieces to put together for you. Now, let's see. Hold on. Got some news coming in. Okay, no, not about that. What we talking about tonight? 3 stories for you. For the most part, being ignored or swept under the rug or trying to just make sure they only whisper about it if they do cover it. But even when they cover it, they ain't connecting the dots. We got voter suppression happening in another state. You know, you may have already heard about it in Texas. Well, now it's shown its white supremacist face in North Carolina. We also gonna touch on the election, the historical groundbreaking election in Virginia, where we gonna be, because that's my home. We are on the precipice of electing the state's first female governor. And then we're gonna travel across the pond and we're gonna hit you with some information about what's going on over there in Kenya. Shocking news. The police over there is having an open fire contest. Yeah, really shocking. Once you start looking at the police through the American lens, then it's not shocking at all. 3 different stories, 3 different locations, but one prevailing system behind all of it. So buckle up. We're gonna get in. We're gonna dig deep tonight. So, story number 1: North Carolina GOP. They getting it started. They are targeting the black vote. The GOP-controlled state Senate is advancing new congressional maps right now. Now, if you don't know, you about to find out. Normally, under normal processes and procedures, they do not redistrict maps. They wait a 10-year block. So this is 2025. They supposed to be waiting another 5 years. But the Republicans have said, well, if we do it now, we can cheat them Negroes out of some votes. Let's do it now. Mid-decade redistricting. Designed specifically to give Republicans an additional House seat by diluting the black vote. They did it, or they're doing it in Texas. Now they're doing it in North Carolina. Coming on up the coast. So who knows what's going to happen in Virginia? Who knows what's going to happen in your state? Let me say this again. They're redrawing the maps. Mid-decade, in the middle of the time frame. And these maps will not be redrawn again until after 2030. At least, according to the rules. Now, we all know Republicans don't follow the rules, but we also all know that the Democrats are sticklers for rules. So once this is laid down as the new ground and new framework, there will not be any Democrats trying to fight it and challenge it. So that'll be an extra 6 more years of a weakened black political voice. Now, so here's what you need to understand, if I haven't said it already. Redistricting normally happens every 10 years. That's why I said mid-decade. It normally happens every 10 years after the census. But these North Carolina Republicans, they looked up and saw what the Texas Republicans was doing and said, we want in on that. Why should we have to wait? Why can't we cheat them Negroes too? Because black voters in North Carolina, just as they were in Texas, black voters in North Carolina have been organizing. They've been turning out. They've been electing people who actually represent their interests. Now, y'all know this America. The system can't have that. So what do? They start looking back over the rules, looking back through the books. Do we have any loopholes we can massage? Oh, we don't have any loopholes? Well, what rules can we break? And they proceed to begin legalizing their rule breakage, because their plan is to break up those districts. Everywhere there is consolidated black voting, just like every time and everywhere there's consolidated black living, they begin redistricting, they begin city planning, urban revitalization, whatever they call it, so they can break it up. They split black communities. They dilute the vote. Now, did you know one district that was 40% black under this new plan is going to be at least 30, or it's going to be no more than 30% black. So that's 10% of the votes. So you can see what they're doing. They're making it mathematically improbable, unfeasible, some would even say impossible for black communities to elect their own representatives. And if you have been paying to the news, you already know, well, why can't we just go to the courts and fight it? The courts that are supposed to be protecting those voting rights, they're letting it happen. Because the Supreme Court gutted the teeth inside the Voting Rights Act. They gutted that. They knocked them teeth out like a Mike Tyson punch back in 2013. And every year since then, we've been seeing slow, methodical, that's your key word, methodical attacks. And it's and for real, it's not just that they're doing this with the vote, because they're doing this with everything they can. Black economics, black power, any way they can. So here's what the mainstream media won't tell you, because now I'm covering it too. Like, here's the breaking news. But guess what? It ain't really that breaking. Why? Why do I say that? Because voter suppression has never ended. Everything that the white supremacists do, they never really truly bring an end to their programs and policies. They evolve them. They remanifest them. They tuck their head for a minute, and the whole time their head is tucked, they're thinking, how can I reinstitute this without being called what I am? They used to use literacy tests. They're actually trying to bring it back, but they used to use these literacy tests. Then we stopped them. Then they used the poll tax, and we stopped them. We made all of those things illegal. That was for our benefit and for any other marginalized group that might come down the pipe, because we've always known the system is rigged against anybody who ain't rich, white, male, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, the WASP. So what do they do after we made sure, after we fought, after we marched, after we hit the courts and made all of their little trickery illegal? Now, well, they can't use those. Now they use maps. Now they use technology. Now they use the algorithm to suppress the vote with surgical precision. This is in actuality the Mississippi Plan 2.0. Just like we got Trump 2.0. Whoop, I wasn't supposed to say his name. Just like we got Taco Man 2.0. We got the Mississippi Plan 2.0. And if you don't know what it is, I may not necessarily be surprised. Only because with the way they are surgically removing all relevant information from the college and the high school and the middle school and the elementary school curriculums, this information might not ever see the light of day again. But the Mississippi Plan that's history repeating itself. Because after Reconstruction, when black folks were voting by the numbers, when black folks were putting their own people in office all across the South, those good old boys in Mississippi, they had to put them heads together. You know, they say two heads is better than one, especially when you're dealing with them good old boys. But they put their heads together and they created a legal framework, specifically, solely, entirely based on the goal of disenfranchising black voters, without explicitly saying, we gonna stop y'all from voting. Without explicitly saying, let's target them Negroes. No, we know we can't say that stuff no more. We can still think it, we can still plan it, we can still strategize it. We just can't say it out in the open. They use things like literacy tests in the past. They use things like poll taxes. They use things like grandfather clauses. And then other southern states copied, and it spread like wildfire. So yes, we put an end to that back then. Some might say that's what, not entirely, but some might say that was the bullseye that the 60s, that the civil rights legislation, the civil rights generation, and the protests and the marches and etc. That's what they were trying to stop or prevent or hold back. You know that song, you got to keep the devil way down in the hole. You can't eliminate the devil, but you can keep the devil way down in the hole. So that's what we were working on and fighting for. Keep those devils down in the hole. But guess what? They done climbed out the hole, y'all. And that's what's happening. It's going on in Texas. They trying to get rid of, I think it's 2 or 3, but they trying to get rid of Jasmine Crockett for sure. She's been a thorn in their side. North Carolina said, we want on that gravy train. So don't be surprised if you hear another story. Georgia gonna be coming along. Florida gonna be coming along. Same playbook, different century. Now here's the part that really gets me. Both parties, both the elephants and the donkeys, they both have a healthy fear of an organized black vote. Now, that's right. I'm pointing fingers at both. Now, we can say, I would be remiss if I didn't say, Democrats take the black vote for granted a lot of times, especially on the national elections. Now, it gets a little different. We got a different playing field when you get to state. We got a different playing field when you get to cities. But they do have a tendency of taking our vote for granted. And in the back of their mind, if they don't say it out loud, just like them good old boys, in the back of their mind, you got nowhere else to go. Now, if you any by means familiar with my channel and my monologues, then you know I am a strong advocate for third-party elections. Now, that don't mean I'm always going to vote third party. I'm just an advocate. I haven't seen any third parties who stay on the shtick long enough to truly gain real official participation into this process. But as long as we got a two-party system, those Democrats who like to take us for granted, well, you know, they got a point. We got nowhere else to go. Because if we vote Republican, we are putting the knife to our own necks. And I, for one, if I gotta die, I'd rather die slow than to die quick, if you get what I'm saying. If you're picking up what I'm putting down. Now, the Republicans on the other side, on the other hand, they just try to eliminate it altogether. We don't need to take them for granted. They don't need to vote. The Republicans today still believe in, at best, 3/5. What they need a vote for. Now, we keep thinking that elected black officials is the victory. This is part of the problem. But black faces in high spaces, I think y'all heard that phrase before. What good is a black face in a high space, in a high place, if they have no power to change the system? As strong as the Congressional Black Caucus is, or if you are a critic, as weak as they are, as strong as they can't be, they will lose even more strength and power when we lose the ability to send more people on up there to DC. If the districts are drawn so that our communities are split 5 different ways, 6 different ways, 3 different ways, what power do we really have? Now, shout out to my people in DC, because they're living through it now. Shout out to my brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico. They're going through it now. They already have taxation without representation. But that's the name of the plan. That's the name of the game. They want as much taxation with as little representation as possible. Now, this reminds me of what Malcolm X said about liberals versus conservatives. Now, again, I'm not going to stay on this stick and beat up the Democrats too much, but I am going to talk about it. Because he said, and I quote, "The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way." Now, he said the liberal is more deceitful than the conservative. This is true. Now, and I'm not here to challenge Brother Malcolm. But I am here to challenge my brothers and sisters who take this quote and misapply it. Because this don't mean you shouldn't be voting, period. And it don't mean you shouldn't vote Democrat. Now, I'm sorry. If you say, well, you still showing bias because you won't say anything positive about the Republicans. Because I don't have anything positive to say about the Republicans. Like, if they did something, if they supported something that truly was a benefit to the general black community, I'd come off my high horse about it. But I will say, but I do understand. And I will say, yeah, I get it. I get the energy. I feel the vibe when we as black people, male or female, man, woman, what have you, when we say, well, that's right. The conservative would just tell you straight up, I don't want your vote. But see, that's the point. The liberal will say, the Democrat will say, oh, no, but we need your vote. They just won't necessarily try to do anything to earn it. But in the game of opposition, there's only 2 teams. The truth of the matter is they don't have to do anything to earn it, because as long as they work to keep the door open. See, that's their main job. Keep the door open. Y'all walk through it if you want to. Because the Republicans is slam the door in their face, shut the door, lock it, padlock it, put some benches in front of it so if they open the door, it's still blocked. That's the difference. Just because somebody is honest with you about their hatred for you is no reason to celebrate them and vote for them. Now I'm off my soapbox. Where's the federal legislation protecting voting rights? That's what I want to know. Now, it is a problem, but I do believe we are now, at least in an era where hopefully, since the Democrats are under the gun, under pressure, because they don't have any power right now, because, well, no, and I can't say it's because they have always neglected the black vote. They, not the vote in and of itself. We showed out. We showed up. We showed out on this last election. So there's some other problem going on. Even if you say, well, not enough of us came out, I'll give you that. I'll grant you that not enough of us came out. But 92% of the black women that did come out, y'all voted for the woman, voted for Kamala, the Democratic. 80 to 85% of the black men that came out, they voted for the Democrats. But the party still lost. So all I'm saying is, one more thing and another thing. If you've heard my morning musings, then you hear me say that quite often. And another thing, the Democratic Party is going to have to start another outcry campaign, because they may need to fundraise off of it. They should be saying it right now. Donate now to stop voter suppression. Now it's on us to hold their feet to the carpet, because we want action. Reparations legislation needs to be enacted. But that ain't the only thing. Might be a real fine litmus test. But Brother Malcolm understood something that we still have not fully grasped. He understood that the system is not broken. Now, some of us know this now. A lot of us still haven't discovered that truth, haven't embraced that reality. But the system is working exactly as it was designed. And that design is to keep us powerless. Now, I don't know how we're going to get up out of this. I don't know how we're going to, chess move our way back into power once they finish redistricting everything. But I know it's something that all of us need to be talking about, thinking about, and working on. Because I want you to think about, why is it happening right now? I'll tell you why. Did y'all know North Carolina is a swing state? It's a swing state. Now, the mainstream media will tell you that Taco Man won all of the swing states. Alternative media streams is saying, yeah, well, we started looking at the numbers. We don't necessarily believe that narrative anymore. So there are some reports that the machines were hacked. Hey, be my guest, go down the rabbit hole for that. But they say, well, Taco Man barely won North Carolina in 2020. Barely won it. Okay, a win is a win at the end of the day. That's true. But in 2024, the whole number scheme seemed to have been switched upside down, topsy-turvy. The demographic shift seems to be real. What that means, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's a whole lot of noise going on in the background. If the Taco Man did successfully, not discreditedly, win a lot of votes, something else is awry. But I don't think he actually won them. I think something is awry. Something smells rotten in Denmark. Black folks, young people, progressive voters are all organizing, have been organizing, because they saw the numbers. So whether the numbers were real or not, black folks hit the ground running after the election. And they said, we're not going to let this happen again. We're going to get even more people out to the polls. That's why the Republicans who control the North Carolina process said, wait a minute, they organizing? Well, I thought they was just going to, I thought they were just going to go back into the corner and bow their head. They organizing? Uh-oh. So the Republican Party sees the writing on the wall. They know they can't win on their own ideas. They know if elongated muskrat, I don't even know what the latest and the newest and the coolest phrase to talk about that South African billionaire. But they know if they don't tap his shoulder to get another dip in the pot, they know they're not going to win on no ideas. Their policies don't help working people. Even the people that voted for them, y'all heard about all those farmers. Even the people that voted for them are now coming out like, but what happened? What about us? So they know their policies ain't go, like, it was a one-trick pony. And their policies ain't never helped the black communities. So that's why they got to figure out, well, how do we limit? How do we restrict? How do we decrease the black vote because we got to play some kind of game to try and make sure we can get the white vote to come back for us on the next one. So what's their strategy? How about we just change the rules? We do it all the other times. If you can't win the game, you rig the board. And that's exactly what redistricting is. It's rigging the board so that even when we show up, even when we organize, even when we vote in record numbers, they still mad about how many of us came out and voted for Obama. So they fully intend to rig the game so that no matter how many of us come out to vote, they still want to ensure that we lose. That's why I keep telling y'all, we can't vote our way out of this. Now, that don't mean don't vote. Voting is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough to just vote and then walk off the playing field. You are part of the team. You don't just throw up the hoop one time and then go sit on the bench. You got to play the full game. We need power outside the system, not just representation inside the system. We need to hold every elected official accountable. We need economic power, community power. We need the ability to say, if you don't represent us, we don't need you. If you don't fight for us, we don't need you. So that's North Carolina. I probably spent way too much time on it. Voter suppression dressed up as redistricting. The Mississippi Plan 2.0 with a 21st century face. Both parties playing games with the black political power while we're supposed to sit here and just take it. But we see you. Now, like I said, we may have a better chance. We may have a easier time pushing those Democrats around. But we got to get them. We got to keep them in office. They already not in control of the state as it is. Now, before we move to story number 2, let me ask you something. Is anything I'm saying making sense to you? I want to say, are you connecting the dots? Have you started to put the puzzle pieces together? Well, if this analysis is hitting different than what you hear on CNN, if this analysis is hitting different than what you might get on even MSNBC, do me a favor, one little small favor. Smash that like button. Right now, I want to see you smash the like button. That's what I would like for you to do. Smash the like button. Let the algorithm know that this is the content that people want. Not the sanitized. Not that we just need to vote harder. Again, I'm emphasizing, I'm drawing down, I'm doubling down on 2 things. We need to vote, but we need to stay organized and informed and aware. Because you can't vote if you go to sleep one night and the next night they done took your vote away. Now, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button because we do this. I can't promise you I do this every night. I've been working to get myself situated where I do this like 5 days a week, 5 nights a week or whatever. But I'm getting there. But as often as I do this, if you subscribe, then you get the notifications. We take headlines and give you the proper perspective. Now, what is the proper perspective? It is the Afrocentric Pan-African view. It is anti-imperialist. It is analytical. And I believe it's something that you're not going to get anywhere else. Drop a comment too. Tell me, do you think redistricting is the biggest threat to black political power over here in this contiguous 48 right now? Or do you think it's something else? We could talk about it. We could duke it out on the battlefield. And if you're new here, you don't know, that's what I call a comment section. So again, we visited North Carolina. We're going to mosey back on up the road. Come on up 95. And we're going to talk about Virginia. Good old Virginia, the Commonwealth, where the wealth ain't too common. Virginia's about to elect a new governor. Now, you might know this, you might not know this. I have covered a couple of little pieces and sections on this. I have talked about Winsome's Earle-Sears. I talked about her horrible platform performance at the debate. But anyhow, you can check out those videos. The races between Republican Winsome Earle-Sears, the black woman, I know it breaks my heart too. She's the current lieutenant governor. And I don't know what to say about that. But hey. Now she's running up against Democrat Abigail Spanberger, who's a former representative. She's a former CIA agent too, so the optics just don't hit right. Whoever wins will make history as Virginia's first woman governor. That's the blazing headline for everybody wants to talk about. The media is playing this up big time. Some media is playing this up big time. They say it's historic. They say it's groundbreaking. They say it's glass ceiling shattering. Now, for women, yes, it is. For black folk in general, I mean, we had L. Douglas Wilder. So that was the real true, the glass ceiling has been shattered for black people as a whole. Now, I do get it for black women, it hasn't been. But I don't think this is the right candidate to be running around saying hoo-ha if she wins. Now, for real, I mean, kudos if that's your cup of tea. But does it matter if it's a woman governor if her policies don't help black communities? I mean, is that where we're at? We want a black woman in office so bad that we'll take the female version of Clarence Thomas? Now, if you feel that way, let me know in the comments. We will duke it out on the battlefield over this one. But here's what you really need to know. Winsome Earle-Sears, like I said, she is a black woman, a proud black woman. Now, for all you cult members in the FBA ADOS thing, she's not FBA. And normally I don't side with nothing y'all say. I'm still not necessarily taking a position on it, but she ain't FBA. But she is a Republican. So that's the thing, because all of the FBA crowd people, they like to beat their chest about being FBA and they don't want to support nobody who ain't FBA, but they will turn around and support the Republicans. So y'all got quite a conundrum on your hands. She's a Marine veteran, so shout out. My father is a military veteran, so shout out to those who, do the service. She made headlines when she became the first black woman elected to statewide office in Virginia, so she's already broken records. Now, up to like 2 days ago, all I was being told, all I had seen was that Trump ain't really endorsed her. I thought that was kind of funny. Now, I was supposed to be, part of my little breaking news piece was that Trump finally endorsed her. And I'm trying to double check that because I'm like, well, egg on me. And if I can just get this, bear with me 1 second. If I can get this thing pulled up, I was going to try to. Let's see. If I can get this article pulled up. I did get a thing. Trump endorses she, which is all Winsome Earle-Sears is going to get from him. So what an endorsement. So there is breaking news that he finally endorsed her. I don't know if it's the kind of endorsement that is going to move the needle. But, in perfect Taco Man fashion, he called Spanberger a disaster. And supposedly he's throwing his full weight, behind Earle-Sears. But like I said, the headlines are a bit murky because some headlines are like, nah, that's not really an endorsement. So one article actually said Trump doesn't hardly even know the name Winsome Earle-Sears. But he told reporters when asked about the Virginia governor's race Sunday night that she would win. Okay, so that's an endorsement. But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen. So now Abigail Spencer, if you don't know, this white woman, she's a Democrat, former CIA officer. I know, because we got all kind of problems with the CIA and the COINTELPRO. But shout out to the FBA because they don't believe that none of that is real anyhow. She represented a moderate district in Congress. She's running as a centrist. So even for the Democrats, like if I was a Democrat, I would be a progressive, so I'd still be side-eyeing her in if I didn't have my Pan-African lens about what you mean she was working with the CIA. But again, this is, one of the problems of a two-party system. And it's one of the reasons I am an advocate for third parties. Virginia ain't big on third parties. Virginia is real used to tradition. Well, we always only had two. So she's running as a centrist. She's trying to appeal to suburban voters who don't like Taco Man, but also don't want anything too progressive. Well, that's the Commonwealth for you. Both of them are fighting for the moderate middle. Both of them are saying, I'm not too extreme. I can work with the other side. Well, I do know that Spanberger has a bit of a track record of trying to walk across the aisle and work with some folk. I'm not really familiar with Winsome Earle-Sears walking across the aisle. Both of them avoiding talking about what actually matters in black communities in Virginia. I do know that. That's for fact. Here's what they're not telling you. Representation without power is just theater. Yeah, it'll be historic to have a woman governor. I said that. I don't deny that. I embrace that. But what does it mean for black folks, for the black community in Richmond, for the black community in Northern Virginia, in Alexandria, for the southern part of the state, the eastern part of the state? What does it mean for black Virginians who are struggling with housing and she don't want to help, who are struggling with education, and the only thing she will talk about when it comes to education is whether or not a member of the Rainbow Crew is sharing a bathroom? Like the classrooms don't matter anymore. The curriculum don't matter anymore. But she don't want to talk about none of that. And what does it matter if we have a black person running the state and she signs off we don't need health care? Me personally, and y'all can tell me I'm wrong if you want. Let me know in the comments, and I will, if you can show me why I'm wrong, all right, cool, I got you. But I'm tired of this whole first black phenomenon. First black man, first black woman, first black whatever. I don't like it. I don't know if I ever liked it, but I'm really getting tired of it. Because, not that I don't honor the people in their fields who are achieving whatever goals they are. I do honor that. I do respect that. I glorify it whenever I can. But I'm tired of it being used as a substitute for actual policy. Obama was the first black president. But did that stop police from killing black people? Did that close the wealth gap? Did it end mass incarceration? Did it fix mass incarceration? Did it improve mass incarceration? No, because representation is not the same as liberation. Now, I'm more of an advocate for full and total liberation. I understand sometimes you got to work through a series of processes, or a process of series. I understand that you got to crawl before you walk. I get it. But just as the Black Liberation Army was fighting for full and total liberation, just as, what's my other poster child organization, just as the Republic of New Africa was fighting for total and full liberation. That's what I want for my people, for us, for the community. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying representation doesn't matter, because it does. What I'm saying is representation is not enough. And when we celebrate the symbolism without demanding the substance, we're the one playing ourselves. That's one of the biggest issues I had. I had others. That's one of the biggest issues that I had with the Obama administration. We celebrated the symbolism, and it was mum's the word on the policies. So we're going to talk just a little bit about what these two candidates actually stand for. Now, Winsome Earle-Sears, as the good old Republican, is running on law and order. But here's the thing. Law and order candidates have never had the best interests of black people at heart. in the details. They love to come up with slogans that sound like we might get some help, but at the end of the day, once the final analysis has been done, the boat missed us. She's running on cutting taxes. She's running on parental rights in education. But for her, parental rights is just code for banning books about Black history and making sure queer people don't use the bathroom. Now, that ain't nothing but a black face on a white supremacist agenda. That's all it is. Again, if you're really concerned with education, if you're really concerned with parental rights, how about letting the parents weigh in on whether or not critical race theory should be taught in their schools? How about letting the truth, how about letting parents weigh in on what facts are in the history books? Because they still trying to teach our children that Christopher Columbus discovered America. I'm off my soapbox for now. Now, Spanberger is running on moderation. She's running on bipartisanship. And she's running on getting things done, which is code for not rocking the boat, not challenging the status quo, and making sure wealthy donors stay happy. Now, I understand you gotta have the bread to get ahead. But like I said, neither one of them is talking about reparations. Now, at least in California, they're talking the talk about reparations. They ain't walking the walk yet. But like I said, crawl before you walk. Neither of these candidates is talking about defunding the police. I know that's the old school bad word for it. But something has to get done with police. Neither of these candidates are talking about investing in the communities. Neither one of them is talking about affordable housing. Everybody knows affordable housing is a problem. Healthcare is supposed to be a human right. We ain't gonna talk about that. Dismantling the school to prison pipeline. We ain't gonna talk about that. Now I know I may sound like, well, why do you even want to vote? I don't know. I want to vote. I want you to vote. I encourage you to vote. I'm not trying to be on the same bandwagon as everybody else, because every time somebody tell me our ancestors died for the right to vote, so you should be voting. We got ancestors that died for not to vote. We have ancestors like, why would you want to leave America? Our ancestors. We got ancestors that left. So I'm not going to drop that game on you, because I don't want that game dropped on me. But I will say, I'm trying to come up with this nice little apropos metaphor. So this may fumble out my mouth improperly. But if let's say you got an army, let's say you got a team, you need everybody on the team. You need every soldier in the army. So the way I look at it, one more Democrat getting elected into office is one more teammate on the team, is one more soldier on the battlefield. Now I'd rather have 10 people on my side than 9. Because if I got 9, they no longer have 10, now they got 11. So that's why I would say, well, here's a reason to vote. And yeah, Virginia's going to elect its first woman governor. Woo-ha! Congratulations. But for black folk in Virginia, we have no vested interest in electing the first black woman right now. It would be totally, entirely, 100% against our best interests if all we want to do is put a black face in a high space. We still gonna be dealing with the same oppression, just with one less soldier on the battlefield. Now this reminds me, I got a story. What Angela Davis said. She said, in a racist society, hold on, let me fix my mouth. She said, Angela Davis said, in a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. You must be anti-racist. Now, I know that's another one of them buzzwords that all the MAGA crowd hate. But we're going to keep using it. Just being a black candidate does not make you anti-racist. Just like just being a black judge don't make you anti-racist. Clarence Thomas. Just being a woman candidate doesn't make you anti-patriarchy. Look at all the women that voted for Taco Man. You have to actively fight the system of oppression, not just exist within it. And I'll take it a little further. You can be black. You know, they say all skin folk ain't kinfolk, all kinfolk, whatever. I always mix that phrase up. But you can be black and uphold white supremacy. Hello, Herschel Walker. Hello, Clarence Thomas. You could be a woman and uphold patriarchy because the systems are bigger than the individual identity. They're about power. Who benefits from your policies? Who suffers from your policies? That's the question that we need to be asking. And right now, just because Winsome Earle-Sears is black and just because black don't crack, don't mean we need to be voting for it. This is not the time to be looking at through the lens of, well, she black. This is not the time to be looking through the lens for, she's a woman. This is the time to ask the hard question. What is she going to do for black people? If you ain't doing nothing for us, we're not voting for you. Now, here's the thing that really gets me. The Democratic Party loves trot out identity politics when it's convenient. But so do the Republicans. So we're not going to necessarily fall for the vote because we a woman. We're not going to necessarily fall for the vote because he black or vote because she black. We want to know what the actual policy is. That debate was horrible. Winsome Earle-Sears is the one, from what I have seen and what I gather, she was the one that turned down the second debate. It was going to be at a HBCU right here in Richmond. So what does that tell you? Now, when it comes to policy, when it comes to challenging capitalism, especially the uber greed of capitalism, when it comes to challenging imperialism, when it comes to challenging the police state, we definitely don't have a friend. We don't have a partner in Winsome Earle-Sears. Now, I'm not saying that Abigail is the Holy Grail, but Abigail can be talked to. So what are you going to vote for? The aesthetic of progress or the actual shot, the actual chance at real progress? Because as far as I can see, the Republicans ain't even trying to pretend, not that they ever really did, but whatever level you give on a scale from 1 to 10, I might say they was always at 1. Now I'm saying they're at 0. They'll put a black face like Earle-Sears out there and say, see, we're not racist. We have a black candidate. And I'm like, yeah, you could tell it to the black friend that you got every time somebody record you on tape saying that, using the N-word. Because her policies are straight up out of Reagan's playbook. And I give a shout out to, well, I ain't gonna even say that. That might get me banned again. This is what happens when we accept representation as a substitute for liberation. I'm gonna say that again. This is what happens when we accept representation as a substitute for liberation. We get black faces in high places implementing the same oppressive policies that have always harmed us. So that's Virginia, ladies and gentlemen. I'm off my Virginia soapbox. We do got 2 women running for governor. It is going to be historic, so they say. I want to know who y'all plan to vote for, or who y'all side-eyeing even, more. It's the same game, different players, but I will say, when it comes down to it, if we got any shot at righting the wrongs of the current administration, we need as many Democrats in office everywhere, up and down the ladder, the chain of command, as possible. Now, so, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, my black people, that's 2 stories down, 2 puzzle pieces. I'm going to put these things together, I promise you. Now, we went from North Carolina voter suppression, voting, to Virginia's historic governor race, voting. That really ain't all that historic if the policies ain't going to change. Now, I got one more story for you. But first, let me ask you. So, is you feeling anything I'm saying? Are you seeing how these two stories connect? If y'all share this video with somebody, send it to somebody who needs to hear this. Your cousin who still thinks voting Democrat is bad news. Your friend who thinks voting Republican is good news. Tag them in the comments. Let them know. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. We're doing our best over here at Proper Perspective to build something viable. This is our media. This is our narrative. This is our truth. All right, now, enough of the shameless advertising. We're going to go international for this last little segment. How about a trip to Kenya? Now, if you don't really pay attention to international news, and I know you don't know, Kenya mourns Raila Odinga. Now, if I said the name wrong, please forgive me. As Pan-African and as Afrocentric as I am, I don't know every language on the continent. But right now, one of the biggest stories coming out of Africa, maybe not necessarily Africa, one of the big stories coming out of Kenya. Kenya is mourning the death of Raila Odinga. So if you don't know, Raila Odinga was a liberation hero. Puzzle piece. Raila Odinga was a liberation hero. He fought for democracy in Kenya for decades. He was a political prisoner. Puzzle piece. He was beaten. He was exiled. But guess what? He never stopped fighting. Thousands of people showed up to his state funeral at a stadium in Nairobi. It was a massive turnout. Why? Because the people loved him. And what happened? Well, I'm sorry to report. I'm sorry to have to say it. But the police did the same thing over there that they do over here. Police brutality. Now, in Kenya, they opened fire. Multiple deaths have been reported. People just trying to honor their hero, and the police started shooting. That always happens when a black hero is honored. Never with a white one. Now, I'll give you a little context. Here's the backstory. Raila Odinga spent his life fighting against dictatorship. Dictatorship. Hint. Back in the 80s and 90s, Kenya was ruled by authoritarian leaders backed by the West. Puzzle pieces. Raila was part of the opposition. He organized, he mobilized, he challenged. Now being told, I'm no longer connected. Okay. Thought I was disconnected there for a minute. But once Kenya transitioned to a multi-party democracy, in large part because of the work, the valiant efforts of Raila. But here's the thing, democracy in name, hint, hint, democracy in name is not democracy in practice. Kenya still has massive inequality. The government still serves the interests of the wealthy elite. Now it pains me to say this. But I'll say it this way, because don't come here telling me I'm trying to ish on. No. But just as corruption is rampant in America, corruption is rampant in Kenya. And when the people rise up to demand change, you ain't got to believe me. And don't try to say I'm throwing shade. The news reports are accurate. The youth of Kenya are standing up against their government. Now, we over here in America could learn a lesson or two from that. The people are rising up to demand change. Unfortunately, the police are responding with violence. We know a little something about that too. So that's what we're seeing at Raila's funeral. The government is scared. They're scared of what he represented. They're scared of the people coming together. Don't this sound familiar? They're scared that his legacy might inspire a new generation of freedom fighters. So what do? They send in the police. They send in, I'm not going to say it. They're using live ammunition right now. They're killing people at a funeral. Now, here's what the mainstream media won't tell you. They're always out to kill our leaders. They always out to police our events, our neighborhoods, our funerals, our parties, our weddings, what have you. So think about that. Raila Odinga fought his entire life for the people. Sound like Fred Hampton. And when the people come to honor him, the state that he fought against opens fire. Now, did we not see this with Martin Luther King Jr.? Did we not see this with Fred Hampton? Did we not see this with Malcolm X? Did we not see this with Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara? Shout out to my DNA brothers and sisters, my Bisa family in Burkina Faso. And then here's the thing. Once the assassinations have been committed, the state tries to sanitize their legacy. Now, don't that sound like Captain Kirk over here? They try to make them safe. If they were black, they try to make them into saints, angels, and Jesuit disciples if they were white. They try to erase the revolutionary parts if they were black and keep only the parts that don't threaten power. That's why nobody knows that Martin Luther King said, "We coming for a check." Well, more people know now because of the internet, but look how long it took for us to recognize and be told and heard and pass that along and be taught that. But deep down on the underground, the people always know. The people always remember. Now, the people at Raila's funeral weren't just mourning a man. They were mourning what he represented: resistance, liberation, and the refusal to accept oppression. We can learn a lot about that right now. That's why the police open fire. Because they know that a funeral can become a rally. A moment of mourning can become a moment of mobilization. But this is what happens when liberation leaders die. The state tries to control the narrative. They try to control who gets to speak. They try to control who gets to mourn. Because they know that grief is political. Memory is political. And when people come together to remember a freedom fighter, they might remember that they have power too. They might remember that they too are freedom fighters. Maybe they just haven't answered the call yet. Now this reminds me of what Patrice Lumumba said before he was killed. The day will come when history will speak. You can kill the revolutionary. You can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. Now we see this pattern in more than one place. Leaders who fight for sovereignty, leaders who promise you'll never have to vote again, leaders who fight for their people, who refuse to bow to the West. These are the real heroes, not the ones who promise you that you'll never have to fight it, you'll never have to vote again. The real ones are always targeted. The real ones are always undermined. And I don't want to say that the real ones are always killed, but the real ones are always on the chopping block. For sure. Now the West will like to trot in every now and then and say, well, there's instability, there's chaos, perhaps we need to go in and fix it. The West will say, well, maybe Africa needs our help. That's what they're trying to do in Burkina Faso. Conjure up a narrative so that they can play the hero. And Burkina Faso said, we don't need you. Y'all go back and have a seat. Africa needs the West to get out, to stay out. Africa don't need any more neocolonialism. They need neocolonialism to end. Africa needs to be allowed to chart its own course without interference. Now, Raila Odinga understood that, and he fought for that. And his legacy will continue to inspire people long after the bullets have stopped flying. Now, here's what I want you to understand. I'm going to try to bring the puzzle pieces are beginning to paint a picture. Because this is not just about Kenya. Just as my story about North Carolina was not just about North Carolina. And so on and so forth. This is a global story. There's a zeitgeist growing in the atmosphere of the human population of this planet. The same forces that are suppressing black voters in North Carolina and Texas are connected to the forces that are propping up authoritarian governments in the United States. It's the same system. Capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, they're all intertwined. You think it's a coincidence that we're seeing voter suppression in the U.S. at the same time we're seeing police violence at a liberation hero's funeral in Kenya? It's not a coincidence. You know, I might sound spooky, but for real, I was once told by some of the more spiritual brothers and sisters that I associate with, there's no such thing as coincidence. It's all the same playbook. Keep the people divided. Keep the people scared. Keep the people powerless. But there's good news in all of this because the people are waking up. From North Carolina to Virginia to Kenya, people are organizing. People are resisting. People are refusing to accept oppression. Now, I want to plug the No Kings rally, but let me curb my enthusiasm. We ain't 100% sure it's truly a rally and a protest march, but I'm glad it's happening. It is at least a visual portrait of fighting back. But that's also why we need Pan-Africanism. Yeah, I know it's become the new nasty word, the new dirty word, the P word is now Pan-Africanism, thanks to the Nasheedites and the Adosians. But we need international solidarity because the fight in North Carolina is connected to the fight in Kenya. The fight for black political power in the U.S. is connected to the fight for African sovereignty. Regardless of what the cultists say, we are still one people, as separate as the fingers on the hand. But we come together as one mighty fist, a black fist. We may be separated by an ocean. We may be divided by borders that we did not draw. But we can remain united in struggle. So that's Kenya, ladies and gentlemen. That's Kenya, the liberation hero who got laid to rest, a funeral turned into a massacre. And a reminder that the struggle for freedom is never over. So rest in peace and rest in black power to Raila Odinga. Your legacy lives on. Now I'm about to land this plane. So let's bring it home. We covered 3 stories tonight. North Carolina redistricting, Virginia's governor race, and Kenya state funeral violence. 3 different places. One system behind all of it. Voter suppression, symbolic representation without real power, in Virginia especially, and state violence against liberation movements. That's the pattern. That's the thread. Those are the puzzle pieces. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Because sitting here just consuming the news is not enough. It is definitely needed. You gotta have you cannot fight without the proper tools. And consuming the news is part of your tool assembly. But we also have to begin to organize. I'm not saying there's nobody organizing, but we got to step the game up. We got to organize. We got to build. We have to create power outside of these systems that are designed to crush us. Now, you might want to join my book club. It's free. I don't charge. And it ain't no weird, free session and then you got to pay. It's just a book club. But you can email me or you can drop a comment on the battlefield about the book club and we can get it rolling. But here's my challenge to you outside of that. Pick one of these stories and do something about it this week. If you're in North Carolina or you know people there, organize around redistricting. Make some noise. If you don't want to file a lawsuit, help somebody else file a lawsuit. I would say go protest, but that might be a little too dangerous right now. We are supposed to be sitting this one out. If you're in Virginia, don't just vote. Make sure you're registered to vote, but demand that whoever wins actually serves black communities. Hold them accountable. If for some ungodly reason the Republican candidate wins, we need a machine of political ingenuity that will work to hold her accountable. Now, if you pay attention to what's happening in Kenya or other African states, if you're interested in learning about Pan-Africanism, I do have a course. It, again, is free. I don't charge nothing for none of this stuff. Learn about African liberation struggles, connect the dots between what's happening here and what's happening there. We are more powerful than they are. We just have to understand and know how and why. We are more powerful than they want us to believe. We just have to understand and know why. But we have to act like it. We have to know it. It has to be 100% our lens and our focus. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this is Shabazz. I just landed my plane. Thank you for flying with Proper Perspective Airwaves. Hit all the buttons because it gets the algorithm jumping. We can duke it out on the battlefield in my comment section. You can tell me what you think. You can tell me where I'm right. You can tell me where I'm wrong. Let's build together. And I will see you next time.